I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And we begin tonight talking about the right to remain silent. Everyone knows about it, and we see the impact of remaining silent, how oftentimes it helps criminal defendants. Now, I don't want to give criminal defendants any hints from this program. I'm a former prosecutor, just making observations of what we see day in and day out here on your front row seat to justice. Now, I want to talk about Alec Baldwin, because Alec Baldwin, we know, shot and killed Halyna Hutchins. I mean, that's just a fact. He shot and killed her on the set of the movie that he was producing and starring in called Rust. Now, I think we all agree, and it's pretty obvious, he didn't do it on purpose. It's not a murder. He didn't intend for it to happen. He absolutely did not want it to happen. I believe that 1,000%. I think anyone looking at this case believes that as well. Nonetheless, there's a criminal investigation that is ongoing. And he's been speaking. I mean, first, this is October 30th when he spoke to paparazzi on the side of the road in Vermont. He's with his wife, Halyna, talking about the shooting. That was the first time that he spoke about it. And again, you have the absolute right to make statements. There's nothing wrong with making statements. He spoke again on ABC News with George Stephanopoulos. It was during this interview where he said he didn't squeeze the trigger, which was interesting, especially based upon the analysis of how that particular gun works. But again, he's entitled to speak. Obviously, people like me would take the opportunity and interview him and get his side of the story. Investigators want to talk to him as well. But he's continued to speak about this. And this is a case that is still under investigation. And it's not a case where it's like a whodunit, right? Where he's going to say something that would implicate himself. But by speaking, you are putting a spotlight on yourself. And you're commenting on the case. And you have to understand, when there's a criminal investigation going on, and someone involved in that criminal investigation is speaking, you know that investigators are listening. You know that the DA, the prosecutor, is listening as well. So you have to take that into consideration when you're making these statements. Now, he's continued to speak, Alec Baldwin. And most recently, he posted a 13-minute video on Instagram where he's talking, reflecting about looking forward to the new year and everything. But obviously, this is a big, big part of his life right now, and will be, I think, for the rest of his life, but especially right now. And he made some statements. So I want to play a piece of that so you get the flavor for the tone of this 13-minute Instagram post. Take a listen.
I was at a coffee shop here on Long Island and having lunch with a friend of mine, and a young woman, like a senior in high school, or maybe she was in college, I couldn't really tell. She walked by with a guy. She was with a guy her age, and she handed me a packet of Splenda. And along the perimeter of the package, where there was a modest amount of space to write on, she wrote me a note on both sides of the package. And it was all, so many people care about you or something. It was like really very, very kind and very thoughtful and very, just really so amazing that she handed me this Splenda packet. I've had more people who have been kind and thoughtful and generous of spirit than I've had, people who are malignant about the death of Halyna Hutchins. I'm not afraid to say that. And to couch that in some euphemism, somebody died very tragically. This has been surely the worst situation I've ever been involved with. And I'm very hopeful that the people in charge with investigating this whole thing get to the truth as soon as possible. No one wants the truth more than I do.
Okay, and I can't imagine the position that he's in. I know he did not intend to kill her. Okay, I know that. But we've just gone through a trial of Kim Potter, who didn't intend to kill someone, and she was found guilty. She's going to be sentenced. She's spending time in prison for that, right? So even if you don't intend the outcome, the conduct is still subject to a criminal investigation. Once again, I want to play for you. Here is the Santa Fe County District Attorney talking about the investigation.
All options are on the table at this point. I'm not commenting on charges, whether they will be filed or not, or on whom. So the answer is we cannot answer that question yet until we complete a more thorough
But there is
investigation.
the potential for Alec Baldwin himself to face charges because you have not ruled them out.
No one has been ruled out at this point.
Okay, that's where we are right now. He's not ruled out. No one is ruled out. The DA is making a decision. Now, here's what I know. I'm a former prosecutor. There is a term in the law known as prosecutorial discretion, where there are some cases that prosecutors can look at, and whether they decide to charge the person or decide not to charge the person, both choices are valid. Sometimes there are cases where, yeah, under the law, there is enough here for probable cause. There's enough to bring a case to trial. There's enough to make the argument to the jury that this person has violated the criminal laws of the state. And sometimes prosecutors, in their discretion, choose to look the other way. From where I'm sitting tonight, this is the guy holding the gun. This is the guy who shot and killed Halyna Hutchins. So, to me, it's very clear that it would be you could not argue against a prosecutor who, in their discretion, decided to bring charges here. Involuntary manslaughter is the one that jumps out to me, right? It's possible. It's on the table. It very well can happen. So here's the question I have. All this talking by Alec Baldwin, how's it being received by the DA? And does it make the DA want to use that discretion to give him the benefit of the doubt, give him a break, or use that discretion to charge him criminally? And personally, if I was the DA, I might start to get a little annoyed right now with all these statements and talking about how he's not responsible. It's up to the DA, it's up to a grand jury, it's up to a jury maybe to decide all of that. And again, he has the right to say everything he says. But is it smart? Is it helping him or hurting him? Let's bring in the think tank. Joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor and law professor at Texas Southern University, Michael Sterling. In Seattle, Washington, trial attorney Ann Bremner. And in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, criminal defense attorney, again, another former prosecutor with us tonight. That's important, Al Wunsch III. Great to see everyone tonight.
Hi.
Michael Sterling, is Alec Baldwin helping himself or hurting himself? Because you may disagree with me, right? Any of you may disagree with me. But I believe this is a case of prosecutorial discretion in deciding whether or not to bring criminal charges against Alec Baldwin. So do you agree with that? And do you think this is helping or hurting him?
Yeah, Vinny, I mean, it's tough to know at this point, right? We've seen, I've prosecuted, defended, sued multiple public figures, celebrities, and the one constant is that they always want to publicly discuss the charges, the case. They always somehow believe that they can influence public opinion. Netflix just did a special called Trial by Media, and this was before even the advent of social media, where you had people like Richard Scrushy and Blagojevich who exploited the opportunities to use the media to potentially influence jurors or to shape public opinion. Sometimes it can be effective and sometimes not. I think for Alec Baldwin's case, he's obviously jumped the gun because charges haven't even been brought against him. And I think you're right, Vinny. When you start talking more, you sort of get to that old saying, thou dost protest too much. So you start thinking to yourself, is there some culpability? Should I look at him closer? Should I pay more attention to him? So I think in this particular circumstance, while I'm not quite sure how it shapes public opinion or potentially influences a trial, certainly probably is getting the prosecutor's attention to look at him a little closer.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that, many members of the public may find, this is humanizing Alec Baldwin, who has a little bit of a reputation. This is showing perhaps a different side. Maybe it depends on how you're taking it all. But Ann, right now, I think we're at a point where there may never be charges. There's a good chance there can never be charges, but
Right.
I think silence is the much better route to take right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's the old, silence will be your ally. A closed mouth gathers no foot. Why would he be talking like this, especially with the issue of whether the gun could go off? I mean, I'm an old prosecutor, older than you are, Vinny, but substantially. But don't you remember those cases is that the gun just went off? Well, they don't usually go off, especially this type of gun for some of the experts. So why did he say that? To invite basically rebuttal from the prosecutor that wasn't possible. And he is trying to play the victim. I think, like Michael said, I always agree with Michael and Al, but the fact is he does protest too much. And that will basically, I think, invoke some interest, if not ire, by a prosecutor.
Al, he may be speaking from the heart, and everything he's saying may be true. I'm just wondering, because right now the challenge, if you're Alec Baldwin, is really, am I going to be criminally charged and you're getting civilly sued, so don't even worry about that. But am I going to be criminally charged? Because involuntary manslaughter, up to 18 months in prison, you're now a convicted felon, and life changes.
True. But, Ben, you got to take a look at the situation with regards to, Alec Baldwin should stay away from making tapes. I mean, you should speak to his daughter, Ireland, about that. And let's take a look at the history of these type of accidents on the scene. You had the situation with regards to Brandon Lee, who was killed on set by Michael Manzi. And Michael Massey at the gun went off, same thing, prop gun went off, had a fragment of a bullet in and killed Brandon Lee. It was ruled an accident. Massey was basically a no-show. He didn't do any publicity for the movie, never saw the movie, went into seclusion for a year. It was ruled an accident. They didn't try anything. Vic Morrow was killed in a helicopter accident in a movie, and they went on the offensive, John Landis and his production company and everything else, saying that this was an accident. It wasn't real. It didn't happen. We didn't mean it to happen. All that kind of stuff. And then they ended up being prosecuted for manslaughter. They were acquitted, but they went on the offensive. Massey kept quiet. So maybe it's not a good move for Alec Baldwin to be making these comments. And please, the Splenda story is so ludicrous that I don't even know why he would have brought that up. It's just a stupid story, and I can't imagine it's true.
Well, it goes on for about 5 minutes because he's lost the Splenda packet, and he's been looking for it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
So it's 13 minutes. He goes on for 13 minutes, but we'll see. We're going to stay on top of the story. We'll see how it develops. But again, from a legal perspective, I think all of us are in agreement that I don't think this helps you with the prosecutor, which is what it's all about right now.